Mike Gascoigne, a mixed testing session there. Petrov was, 1.4 seconds off the front runners. Do you know what's wrong?
It's very simple. It's a weight problem.
Can you fix it?
Yes, we can. We'll just get Vitali to leave his wallet in the garage tomorrow. Do you want to buy some scrap metal?
Hello and welcome to Gareth Jones on Speed, and I would imagine this programme's going to sound a little different to any other previous episode of Gareth Jones on Speed because we are podcasting to you from the other side of a curry. Now, we normally podcast from the other side of a pizza, so I don't know if the curry will affect how we talk about it. Quite frankly, I want to sit down and digest that lovely matcha paneer I just had.
It's a whole new boundary in podcasting and food to explore.
And how was your tandoori chicken?
It was excellent. It was good.
And Richard, your chicken madras?
Good madras. Not too hot, just the right amount of kick, and not loads of coriander in it, which I don't like.
That's it. You've been listening to Gareth Jones on food.
Gareth Jones on spice.
I like the idea of that, yeah. Wouldn't that be a programme about the movie Dune, though?
Oh, good reference.
Really?
Good.
Thank you, Chuck.
Philip Herbert?
I'm sure. Robert Herbert, no. Dennis Herbert?
No,
Frank Herbert.
Yeah.
Okay,
Amazing
focus.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Focus.
Cars.
Less geekery.
Well, you think I don't know where to start. This is the truth. I'm floundering here because I don't honestly know where to start with Cars because we're in that sort of hinterland at the moment. We're right at the end of the long winter of no Formula One or very little motorsport at all, and it's never darker before the dawn. What can we really talk about? Can we talk about Formula One in any way? What should we be saying?
We've had a little bit of testing, so there's a little bit to go on there, maybe,
Yeah.
you know, if you're inclined to read anything about it.
Yeah, I don't like this sort of testing. I mean, obviously it's interesting and we can't help but watch what's going on, but there's so much sandbagging that happens and
Yeah,
so
of
many
course.
thing that teams do to try and put people off the scent. I put a thing on Twitter trying to sound clever and profound, even though I'm neither, trying to deduce what the first race is going to be like from watching testing is trying to know what the symphony would be like by listening to the orchestra tuning up.
That's a very good analogy.
It's all so random
Yeah,
and so messy and so off-putting what happens in testing that you really have no clear picture of what's going to happen in the first race, which is why I can't wait for the first race.
Yeah, I mean, for example, we know that Grosjean was quickest at the end of the first day in the Lotus, which might make you think, oh, well, you know, they've got it together this year, they're going to be quick. Maybe they're going to be that much closer to the leading team.
Yeah.
Probably going to be Red Bull and Ferrari and McLaren again. But it was on apparently soft tyres in the afternoon session when everyone else was doing kind of longer runs on hard tyres.
Exactly.
So
and it was
there
running
you
a
go.
turbo probably as well.
And downhill all the way.
Yeah.
If we take testing seriously, it looks like Sauber have wrapped up the entire championship, judging by the results so far. And Williams a very close second there, Pastor Maldonado. So
You kind of proved my point there, really.
Exactly, yeah, really. There's no point whatsoever. But you can discuss the look of the cars.
Yeah, it's... Well, anyway.
Yeah, and you just can't find very many pleasant things to say about the look of the cars at the moment, really. Except that actually, McLaren have done a passable job, at least. You know.
Yeah, the McLaren is quite saucy, but the rest of them are varying degrees of gopping.
This McLaren is, I've said this before, is conservative. It just looks like a McLaren, and it's such a relief compared to those horribly disfigured other platypus-nosed beasties out there. It's just a relief. Will we get used to the look of these new cars? We have in the past got used to broad front wings and ridiculous, I always said it like a box kite when they changed the shape of the rear wing a few years ago. Will we get used to the look of these stupid
Yeah, we'll get used
cars?
to it, but you get used to having lumbago or arthritis or something.
I
It doesn't
have,
make
yes.
it pleasant. So, no, they're pretty horrid, unfortunately.
The Marussia, of course, has failed its FIA crash test.
It failed its being substantial enough test is what happened, didn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, and did you notice Marussia were advertising as well for a new stress engineer and design engineers and stuff, so I think someone must have been sacked. Really? For that?
Yeah.
Poor Marussia.
I heard some stories
quite a big
about
deal,
Marussia
really,
that would lead me to believe that sacked means something else there. I'm not saying anything else, honestly.
Oh, come
I'm
on, you
intrigued.
can't
This
leave. Come
is-
on, tell us more.
I'm going to do a mime.
Tell you what,
don't say what I'm
we
doing.
won't-
Seriously,
Right, okay.
don't say
Right.
what I'm doing.
Yeah, I'll do the audio description. Oh. Oh,
Right.
really? They did?
They can do
Well,
that. Wow.
no, I'm just speculating on that.
Oh, I see. You may have
Yeah,
extrapolated
yeah.
a bit
Just,
there.
Yeah. Russian.
Okay.
Russian.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't mess
well,
around.
they are. We've met them, haven't
Yeah.
they?
Have you met them?
Serious.
Oh, yeah. Well, we've met the daughter of Mr. Marussia. Yeah, at what was her name? Oh, you weren't there.
So I was trying to get a game of poker because I heard there was a poker tent.
Her name is Anya.
Is it?
She is the daughter of Mr. Insert name of person who owns Marussia here, and yeah, there was quite a
I can't
an
hear
oligarch.
the name Anya anymore because do you know a band called Marina and the Diamonds, and
Marina,
they
yeah.
did a
Yeah.
great song called she. It's one girl, isn't it? But she did a song called Hollywood, which is a great little pop ditty, but it has the best rendition of the name Anya in it because she hits a real sort of high note in it. It goes Anya in it. I can't. Sorry,
You can't do it.
So I've only gone, hi, my name's Anya, and I'd have just gone Anya.
Anya!
It was a musical Tourette's.
I just think of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but
I never watched that. Does that have an Anya in it?
I think
Focus.
Yes,
Sorry, I think Marussia, or Manor, as they really are in many, many ways, I think they should just field one of their Formula 3 cars because they've done really well in F3, haven't they? Over the years, Manor have done better than almost any other team, arguably, possibly only Carlin
this-
and Arden.
how much of a guarantee of success in F1 is that? You know?
Well, it's going to do better than the bloody Formula 1 car, let's be honest.
Well, because is this like I sometimes have this theory that could a really, really clever dog be smarter than a really, really stupid person?
No.
Well, I mean.
Sorry to just jump in there with the subject.
Well, so okay, but could a really, really good lower formula car be better than a really bad F1 car?
Ah,
Okay,
yes,
well, okay,
yes.
possibly, yeah.
Yes, I remember.
I'm talking about a really clever dog, by the way.
Yeah,
so
okay. Well, okay. If we're talking about somebody with really, really severe brain damage,
No. I'm just talking about. I'm just talking about one of those insufferable idiots that leave comments on YouTube. That kind of stupidity.
Oh, there's a lot of that. Listen, I can cite an example, and I think you can say that your theory's right.
What, dog or car?
In the last year
Focus,
or two...
focus, car.
No. In the last year of Minardi in F1, their lap times weren't as good as GP2 cars.
on the same circuit.
On the same circuit.
Yeah, see, that's a good.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Like
so
it.
maybe it could. I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it. It'd be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, in Le Mans you get all these different sort of abilities of cars zizzing around, and sometimes a car from a lower formula will
do
do
get the
better from
crossover,
a higher one.
The quickest GT.
Particularly if there's a really terrible high formula car, Aston Martin.
Oh.
So yeah, why not?
Okay.
Anyway, we'll tackle the dog one on a different day. But yes, I think a
It's
lower formula car in F1 were interesting to
I'm
see.
intrigued by the dog question. I think with this.
Isn't
Continue
that
the research.
really what we've got at the moment? Let's be fair. The non-grandee teams. What's the opposite of a grandee, so what's...
Grand peasant. I mean,
Yes, peasantry.
Underling.
The peasants' Formula 1 teams, you know, Marussia...
Are you imposing a sort of
Caterham,
caste system on the Formula 1 grid?
Proletarian, grandee proletarian.
Yeah.
Proletariat, the F1 proletariat, that actually suits Marussia rather well, doesn't it? We the proletariat.
Yeah.
Marussia, Caterham, and HRT,
Yeah.
right? They're racing in a different class to the rest of Formula 1, really, aren't they? There are, in fact, two Formula E going on there in Formula 1.
We've got this is Middle Ages Formula 1. You have your royalty and your serfs. That's how it works. Another very fast pit stop from Red Bull, and as Vettel blasts majestically onto the track once more, it's over to Lumsden, who's at the other end of the pit lane.
Thanks, Chris. Yes, I'm here in the HRT garage where these men in smocks are furiously working on the car. Excuse me, what's the problem here?
It's a spoiler, sir. Some of the wattle fell off it.
Wattle. And you're also topping up the engine with... what is that?
It's mud, sir. Mud and a poultice of elderberries, witch hazel and catkins, and a bat's face.
Why are you doing that?
The mice like it, sir.
Mice?
The mice in wheels, sir. How is the car, sir? Mice.
Didn't HRT have a Cosworth V8?
Yep, but this is faster.
Sniff Petrol! We Gareth on speed!
One of the things that makes Formula 1 so utterly fascinating and impressive in my mind is the way that they sort of foresee almost eventuality, with the exception of Marussia and the crash tests. You know, they really do think about everything and have contingencies in place, almost like a space program. You know, it's that kind of, well, we've got a plan B and a secondary backup and a tertiary backup. You know, that Formula One thinks. They have that kind of mentality. On the other end of the scale in motorsport, you've got NASCAR in America. And if ever there was an example of them not really thinking it through, it's what happened at the Daytona 500 last weekend. It's not funny. And yes, it is. And if you've seen the clips, have you seen this on YouTube, you two? Yeah?
No.
Didn't actually see the clip, but I know what happened.
If you didn't see it or you don't know what happened, this is what happened. A safety car period. Montoya is blasting around the circuit in his, I think, number 42 car. And that's me already knowing far too much about NASCAR than I want to know. Trying to catch up with the field, he comes up to the track cleaning vehicle that they have in NASCAR, which is a big American pickup truck with a trailer. And on that trailer is a jet engine from a helicopter, a Bell Huey something or other, I suppose. They use it to dry the track and to blow any debris off the banking towards the inner field. Good idea. You know, we've all seen it. We've seen it at Rockingham when Champ Car was there.
If you need to dry a wet track, it's a pretty good way of doing it.
It's a good way of doing things. However, there's a small flaw in the plan. If you think about it, for some reason, Montoya's car lost control. Suspension or transmission failure or something. Back end hit the deck. You're watching it on your iPad now.
Keep going. I'm just going to look it up.
Okay.
So
suspension failure. The car spins 90 degrees out of control just as he comes up alongside the track blower, which is high on the banking. He careens into not the truck but the track blower itself. Almighty bang! Unbelievable ball of flame. Why is there an unbelievable ball of flame? Because that thing has got 100 US gallons of jet fuel on board, which then pours down the banking. A river of fire! Did they think about this beforehand? Well, I think that'd be a great idea. Let's have 100 gallons of f***ing rocket fuel, man. Come on!
But if you're going to have a big, thirsty jet turbine engine on the back of a truck, you know, you've got to give it a big old fuel tank, otherwise they're going to keep having to top it up too often, and, you know, you can argue that's an
accident waiting to happen.
Yeah, well, yeah, have it
quite literally.
Racing cars, you know, passing pickup trucks laden with fuel and spinning jet turbines. Yeah, it is kind of an accident waiting to happen.
He slew sideways. We're watching it now. You don't actually see the impact on that shot, but he hits the worst possible thing, the fuel tank, and it's just that the river of fire is what got me. I mean, I know we've had terrible things happen in Formula One, but is it as daft as what we saw in NASCAR?
I mean, first question that comes to mind is, you know, couldn't they make it a safer fuel tank? Because there are all kinds of ways of making fuel tanks less prone to spilling their contents all over the place if they're ruptured, if they're damaged.
I'm just getting mesmerised. We've all become cavemen because we're now staring at footage of fire. I'll put this down.
It melted the track.
My question is, was anyone hurt in this?
No. The driver of the truck, no.
Okay, right, so what's the problem? It's NASCAR. It's about spectacle. It's about extraordinary things happening. Every time they put a NASCAR race on, they have like a million cheerleaders and then a bloody B-52 flies over the top. It's the best show on earth. I'm telling you. I've had 2 opportunities to go to NASCAR races when I've been in the States, and both times I couldn't go, and I'm gutted because I know obviously I was just driving around in circles. But it's a spectacle, and that, from what I've seen, was a sodding massive spectacle. Fair play to them. Of course there's a trailer full of fuel there. They were probably hoping that would happen. They could charge the crowd double if they promised that some Colombian idiot's going to careen into a bloody gallon of jet fuel and cause it to go up. Superb. As long as no one's hurt, more of that, please.
Do you know what? It's probably done NASCAR more good, because we've just spent the last 5 minutes on this programme talking about NASCAR for the first time ever. It is a good thing for them, but really, it's that close to being a really terrible.
Yes, it could have been horrible, but it wasn't, so it was superb.
Yeah.
I think that's...
Yeah. I mean, Montoya could have had his pies overcooked, couldn't he, really? Let's be honest there. He carries a couple of pies with him in the car, I believe.
I think if we kept on watching that footage, you'd suddenly see him running back towards the fire with a load of marshmallows on wooden sticks. Anyway, should we bring it back to European matters?
And less volatile fuels. Can we talk about diesel?
Oh, go on then.
Yeah, diesel. Is it right to say less volatile? Is that a correct scientific term?
Yeah, well, if it is less volatile, no.
It needs to be under compression to...
But actually, I don't actually know quite how volatile jet fuel is, because it's less volatile than the petrol we put in our cars, isn't it?
Is it though? Because I thought that avgas was 100 octane. That just sort of is the energy rating.
Is that the same as JP8 fuel? We don't really know what we're talking about.
No, that's good. I like that. Yeah. Well, what we do know is that diesel...
JP8 is what they use in a lot of military jets, isn't it?
There's that stuff they used to run the old Blackbirds on, the SR-71.
But that's special because they used to have to gel that fuel in order that it was less liquid, in order that it didn't leak out of the tanks when it was sitting on the runway, because the expansion of the metal airframe, when it's cruising speed, heated it up, and all the gaps contracted.
It would leak on the ground.
Yeah, it would leak on the ground.
But it did used to leak on the ground. That's the thing. When they were sitting on the tarmac, they did used to gently piddle oil like an old Allegro. Not oil, but fuel.
Like an old lady.
Yes, like an old lady. And
you know, an old lady that piddles fuel. That's
wow! Harness her, you'd be quits in. And but I remember seeing a documentary about it, and they said, "Oh, it's nothing to worry about." And honestly, you could take a bucket of this stuff and throw it on a fire, and it would just put the fire out. It was that lacking.
How do you gellify a fuel? Do you put gelatine in it? Do you go shivers down Shivers shop?
I'm guessing that gelatin, being water soluble, is probably not soluble in a hydrocarbon fuel. I'm guessing you'd add some kind of sort of long
flour.
I don't know. Corn flour?
No. Thickening it, gravy browning.
Polystyrene grains or something.
Bisto.
Bisto. So, Le Mans, diesel fuel, yes, that's a change of gear.
That's where we're going, okay.
Le Mans. Now, Audi announced that they will be racing against themselves and probably winning against themselves at Le Mans this year. Yes, Toyota will be there, but there are two slightly, is it right to call them markedly different, but slightly different Audis racing at Le Mans. Let's get the nomenclature right.
Very different powertrains is the main thing, isn't it?
Well, they're both turbo diesels, but one of them has got an energy recovery system and the ability to put that energy back down through the wheels, and they've called it, is it the e-tron Quattro? Or the Quattro e-tron, I forget now.
It's called the R18 e-tron Quattro.
You're reading that, I can tell.
I just want to double check it, so I've got this here. Do you know that the normal car, or the one that we're more familiar with, is going to be called the R18 Ultra? Which is a stupid name.
Do you reckon that's something to do with Shell? What's Shell's diesel called? Ultra, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Probably. I doubt they're referencing a Depeche Mode album from several years ago.
Which was quite good.
It was quite good,
Yes. That man who sends us quizzes, Dave Stebbings, I think we christened him an Ultra Listener.
Ultra.
Because he really pays attention. Ultra Listener.
Unless they're sponsored by Ultraman, the Japanese superhero. Which of those two cars is going to win then? The hybrid or the reliable diesel tested system?
I don't know. Let's go and find out. Audi would prefer the hybrid to win, I'm sure. So aren't they going to slightly favour that internally? So unless they're being pushed hard enough by one of the other teams, that Audi hybrid is going to win, I reckon.
Yeah, the first thing they want to do is win. Doesn't matter what with.
Yeah.
But then, given the choice, maybe. I don't know. But and if they don't, with the hybrid, if it's not doing so well, they can always go, well, it's a proving exercise. We're just trying it out.
Yeah.
It's weird. I've just been reading about this, and it says that it's four-wheel drive, hence the Quattro bit in the name. And the rules at Le Mans effectively allow for around 70 brake horsepower of stored energy to be transferred to the wheels, the front wheels, between two braking events at speeds above 75 miles an hour. So it's not going to be four-wheel drive all the time, and it is restricted on how much power it can put to the front wheels. So it's still sort of fundamentally the diesel rear-wheel drive car with a bit of extra gubbin.
Yeah, and a bit of extra can make a lot of difference.
It's a KERS system. Williams Hybrid Technology developed the flywheel that they're using to store and recover the energy. It's not going to be the supercapacitors that Toyota are using.
Yeah, I find this very interesting because this supercapacitor technology is interesting because you've got a way of potentially getting a higher energy density, as I understand it, that you can get with chemical batteries, because one of the issues with chemical batteries is you're limited by the chemistry. You're limited by how much energy you can store in chemical bonds, and the amount of energy you can store in any chemical bonds in any compounds that we know about is actually relatively low. It means that the energy density you can get in batteries is always going to look fairly poor compared to liquid fuel, for example.
Yeah, but supercapacitors,
I believe you can go beyond that because you're not limited by that chemical bond energy.
And they deliver an awful lot of power very quickly, as opposed to batteries which eke it out, which is better for road use, I suppose.
And whether that's to do with the internal resistance or something, because any battery has an internal resistance. So when you try and draw a lot of current from a battery, the internal resistance of that battery becomes more significant. Apart from limiting the power, that also means that the battery gets a lot hotter when you're drawing that power.
So we've got the Audis with ultra power.
Yeah.
We've got Toyota with super capacitors. There's room at Le Mans for someone to use the term mega, isn't there?
Well, presumably a Scouse team of some description as well.
So you're the first entirely Merseyside-based team to enter endurance racing. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing. Yeah, we're the mega team, and we're going to Le Mans, Can you tell us something about the car you're using? Oh, yeah, this is our car here. It's an Audi. The team Mega Audi, that is. What sort of Audi is it? It's an A4 Mega.
Gareth Jones on speed.
I'm not bored with cars. I will never be bored with cars. But I am slightly disillusioned that one of the more exciting ideas, I suppose, at the upcoming Geneva Auto Salon is a 3-cylinder Ford.
Well, more exciting ideas for you.
Yeah, I think I think for all of us.
Oh, I'm very interested in this.
Yeah. The idea that one of the most efficient cars on the road that we're going to be able to buy in the next few years is not going to be a hybrid, not going to be a diesel, not going to be powered by Ouija board or something else, but a good, old-fashioned petrol engine, albeit with an electric supercharger. That's the bit that I find interesting. They call it the EcoBoost.
It doesn't have an electric supercharger at the moment. It's got turbo at the moment, as it's fitted to the Focus.
That's an Escort then.
And I would urge caution here about this most efficient thing, because it is a very clever idea. All this downsizing is great. However, speaking as the owner of a Fiat 500 Twin Air, downsizing par excellence, 900cc, 2-cylinder, little turbo on it. Makes good power, but supposedly super economical, which it is in the official tests. In the real world, it does 39 miles per gallon everywhere. Ooh. Motorway, 39. City, 39. Mixture of that, 39.
Well, at least you know what you're going to get. And,
yeah, it's fine, but...
They say that about the Hummer as well, don't they? At least you know what you're going to get.
Two.
Yeah. But 39's not bad.
I'm not complaining, because I love that car to death, and it has personality, and it has actually quite good performance.
Bags of personality, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Interestingly, I drove this week the Volkswagen Up. Or Up, as you're supposed to call it.
Say it right, yeah.
Now, that doesn't have a turbo on it. It is 3 cylinders, but it's very lightweight as well.
There you go. You can't change the laws of physics. That's
exactly
what you have to do.
And I nerdishly zeroed the computer on that. That, it appears, does 50 miles per gallon everywhere. Motorway, 50 miles a gallon. In the countryside, 50. Town, 50. More than 50 sometimes if you were gentle with it. And I thrapped it within an inch of its life. It's not as much fun as my Fiat. It's certainly not as fast. But it's not unfun. It feels incredibly sturdy, but it's also very economical. But I think that is down to lightness and low-friction engine. And I don't know why, but I think these turbocharged, smaller capacity engines, particularly in a heavier car like a Focus or a Mondeo or an S-Max, is not going to do the official figures.
How would you build a low-friction engine? Do you leave bigger gaps between the piston and the cylinder?
Well, you joke about it, but I'm sure that the tolerances and having the right lubricants and real precision,
the right lubricants. Don't use KY jelly. No. That's not going to work. Well, it might actually.
It's water-based though, so you probably won't do too well.
burn
engine,
off.
so, yeah.
Yeah, the tolerances on a modern engine are microscopic. That sounds stupid. Of course they are. They are on all engines, really, relatively, but they're particularly fine.
There's probably a lot maybe to do with surface coatings to reduce friction.
And all your stuff, in your gudgeons and your crankshaft and all this stuff, that there are modern materials and your Teflons and of the like that have been refined to such a point that we're talking just tiny degrees of reducing any sort of friction in them.
The thing is that the internal combustion engine is an incredibly mature technology. You know, we've spent decade after decade refining it and making it better and better and better. In a sense, we're still making the best of a bad job because it's still kind of a kludgy, silly way of getting energy out of something. And when you step back and look at it, the electric powertrains and electric power sources do look awfully appealing by comparison because it's an awful lot easier to get to a higher level of efficiency. What the whole electric thing isn't so good at is the energy storage. I mean, that's really the biggest problem. But you compare an electric motor with an internal combustion engine as a source of power for your wheels. The electric motor has a tiny fraction of the number of moving parts, way fewer things to go wrong, and is way more efficient, even if you pick a relatively bad one rather than one that's been the product of decades and decades and decades of work.
Are you swatting up on Fords with electric superchargers looking at your iPad?
This electric supercharger thing,
it's going to go in the Focus. Is it the ST? What are they calling it? The next performance Focus?
The next ST has a 2-litre turbo, an old-school 4-cylinder one.
So what Ford is going to have this electric supercharger?
Well, they haven't announced it yet. So the tiny 1-litre 3-cylinder turbo engine is in the Focus. That's going on sale now, pretty much, and has 123 horsepower, I think, according to this.
Very good.
And there'll be a 99 horsepower one as well. Because it's the thing, it's all ECUs and turbos. Fiat are doing the same with the twin-air engine. The one in my car has 85 horsepower. There's going to be a 100 horsepower one as well. They'll just turn everything up a little bit, take the turbo off, they make a sort of 60-odd horsepower one. That's entry level. They're saying there will be, this was announced, there's going to be one with an output as high as 177 horsepower, which from a 1-litre turbo is pretty incredible. But this is where they're saying that Ford is already believed to be working on a prototype high output version fitted with an electric supercharger and a regular turbocharger. So that's where they'll get the extra power from, if rumours be believed.
That may be one of those things whereby, just like power steering is more efficient, you waste less power if you've got electric power steering rather than power steering that's driven by some belty gubbins and hydraulics and all that. Maybe that's the same thinking with that supercharger. They're more efficient, yet you lose less energy in driving the supercharger.
We had a supercharged Lotus Elise that was shockingly good, wasn't it, a few years ago?
Yeah, I drove it down to the British Grand Prix.
I had a cappuccino which had a triple in it, turbocharged.
I was a triple in my cappuccino.
Thank you very much. And the thrum of that little cappuccino engine, 3-cylinder engine, makes a lovely buzzing noise. So I'm kind of excited by that. I just want to bring it back that I'm genuinely excited about this little, lightweight, slightly alternative thinking engine. In some ways, it's half a Land Rover engine, isn't it? Some of the technology that's gone into this car, Ford have learnt from making the engines for Jaguar, I understand.
Really?
Yeah.
You know, it's got an iron block, though.
Yeah.
Seems terribly old-fashioned and heavy.
And there's a reason for that.
Is there heat conduction?
Because of the high pressures. It's got a really long stroke.
Yes.
The stroke is 73 foot.
Yeah.
It's a very unusually proportioned car. You have to look around the bonnet. It's very vertical.
But they put glass sides into the cylinders. It's like watching one of those buildings with a lift on the outside. You can watch
the time rope in the TARDIS.
You can watch the pistons going up and down over the course of 2 or 3 minutes.
Hang on. I'm going to pull the Zug up on something there.
What?
The what in the TARDIS?
Isn't it called the time rotor?
Is that what it's called?
I believe it's called the time rotor.
I thought you said that.
Yes.
It's the time rotor, the bit that goes up and down in the middle of the TARDIS. It's because it's real technology.
Of course it's real technology.
So, tiny engines. I don't know. Talking of 3 cylinders, I drove the VW up, which was an interesting little car, and I quite liked it. Well, I drove it down to Guildford, actually, and around London. But 3-cylinder, and it doesn't have balancer shafts, which most 3-cylinder engines do. And the two-cylinder engine in my little Fiat does, but this doesn't. And I thought, well, that's going to be interesting. Maybe it'll be a bit vibraty and a bit noisy. Absolutely not, and it almost doesn't sound like a three-cylinder. It's actually.
So how are they getting around the vibration problem? Because most internal combustion engine configurations are inherently a bit unbalanced, and you have a bit of vibration because of all of those bits of metal flying up and down. So
I'm glad you asked me that, Zog, because there is an answer to this, and I have forgotten it, even though I read about it. It's something, again, I think, to do with tolerances and also with counterweighting on the
crankshaft, maybe.
Yes.
There's something clever with
they've done something
design.
there. And it does feel, at low revs, a bit reluctant to rev slightly, and I think that's partly due to the gearing, which felt quite long, and partly maybe because there's some kind of heavy sort of flywheel effect on it, which is to damp the engine and stop it being buzzy. I don't know. I will look this up. I wish I had done before we started recording.
I want to bring this to a head now, but there was one car I want to talk about. There's another really boring car that's genuinely interesting that's going to appear in Geneva, and that's the new Volvo. Do we call it the V40 or the V50?
V40.
V40. I'm confused with Volvos now. And it's not the S anymore, it's a V, even though it's actually
V
an H.
stands for versatile.
Versatile, which is normally the estate. I think it should be called an H because it's a hatchback. Because it's not. Anyway, this is a very safe Volvo, isn't it? As Volvos are supposed to be.
Didn't they make a particularly bold claim about how by 2020 they expect that nobody is going to be killed in a collision involving a Volvo and a pedestrian?
This is their objective. And to that end...
It's a fabulous objective.
Well, it is,
all credit to them.
It's interesting because one of the ways they're going to achieve this is the first time on the V40, the world's first pedestrian airbag. The bonnet, if you hit someone, there are multiple sensors around the front of the car. They detect you've hit someone, and it's some person rather than a fence post or something. The bonnet pops up. At the same time, an airbag emerges from the trailing edge of the bonnet, between the bonnet and the windscreen, and sort of covers the area where a pedestrian's head would fall. And cushions your fall. They also say specifically that the airbag is shaped to allow the driver to retain the view ahead. Now, my view is that
Despite
if you've hit somebody, it's too late for that.
Yeah.
You're probably worth paying attention.
Yeah, I think so.
But it's an incredible idea, and it's going to be standard on all these
Unless you're doing what
V40s.
my grandmother did and you run over a whole line of people rather than just one of them.
Really? Your
Yeah,
grandmother?
did I tell you about
No,
that?
that's for another episode of Gareth Jones on Speed, I reckon. I like that idea. I think it's a bold idea, but I think Volvo may have borrowed that idea from Ford. I remember Ford talking about that. Remember Volvo and Ford have been like that, were like that for a long while. Ford mused on that about 5 or 6 years
Yeah,
ago.
but I bet they went up to Volvo's place in Sweden, where they used to do a lot of their safety testing for all cars in the Ford group, and just nicked their idea.
You see, the problem here is that they've put the airbag in the wrong place, in my opinion. Don't put it on the car. Give
Put it on
people
the
airbags, and that will reduce the weight in the cars. There'll be a lot more fuel
You
efficient.
can get them. You can get them for motorbikes.
You can.
A human airbag.
Jackets with them.
And for skiers, except for skiers,
Really?
it's a different application. The point is that in an avalanche, the airbag deploys, and you tend not
Get
to get
survival
buried
space.
under a huge...
Right, that's it. Going to pass a law that pedestrians are not allowed out unless they've got a puffer jacket which inflates now, and that would protect them from badly driven Volvos.
And stop them getting through narrow doorways.
Yeah, you've been listening to Zog.
Goodbye.
Richie Porter.
Goodbye.
I was Gareth. We're going to leave you with a tune. As you know, I'm a massive Dexys fan. Recently, Dexys announced that they're going to release the first album in 25 years, and you can hear 1 minute of the new Dexys on YouTube. There's a teaser, the first 2 minutes of the album, in fact. Coincidentally, wouldn't it be good if the other Dexys released a minute, a teaser, right? Dexys Midnight Racers, the lot who brought you Come On Eddie. Do you remember Come On Eddie, boys, don't you? You like that tune?
Yeah.
Good tune. Well, this is the next generation of Dexys. This is a song very much in the style of Kevin Rowland's new Dexys. It's called Odd. See ya. I've always gone my own way. I've always been a difficult sod. I won't drive what everybody else will drive. I want to own a car that is odd. When everybody says it's apparent, Everybody knows the new McLaren. Think about the Formula 1 car. Looks gone without a platypus nose.
To send us an email, see pictures, get song lyrics, join our Facebook fan site or follow us on Twitter, go to GarethJones.tv. Gareth Jones on Speed is made in London by Whiz Bang.
Gareth Jones on Speed!